stole my thunder because I was going to begin by pointing out Samantha. But you can point it out again. Yeah. And the reason being that much of Hannelie's known work is of that scale. And so there's an extraordinary contrast between the scale of that or the big mural in Jurison Street and other works to the fine detail that we're seeing on the wall. The fine detail on the wall, I think, derives from Hannelie's early career as a photographer, because I see in this work traces in the images of animals. Like the blink of an eye, a camera lens captures an image in 1/60th of a second. Hannelie has caught the movements of these animals as if by camera, not impossibly with pen, ink and robust tea. The first of these works, the hyena over there, executed en plein car, not en plein air, she's not so stupid, in the Kruger in 2021, recall for me Hannelie's hyena sculptures in wood from 2018, but also other work in salvaged metal and stone, and that includes the two pieces behind me and some other pieces over there, and some more over there. Okay. But these works on paper, I think, are unique. Who else in the world paints en plein car in ink and rivers? The drawings were executed in 2021. Others, these ones behind me and the work over there, are from 2023, and they're extraordinary drawings of South African animals, first on art paper, then on folios from Anglo ledgers, dating from the early 20th century. All are studies in motion, camera quick but subtle, studies which give us a new appreciation of how these animals are and how we might, could and should relate to them. The images seem ethereal, but they're exceptional in their precision and the depictions of animal ways of being. Look at the baboons scooting across the track, for example, or giraffes at play, courting, or the wildebeest in a contemplative mood. The beauty, delicacy and fidelity of these works mark them as extraordinary. But beyond this, these works matter in ways we would not have anticipated. The work is part of Hannelie's continuing project, personal and public, to shift practice and perception on a number of axes and concepts. The first is to see non-human animals in new ways. Hannelie's work is an important contribution to this rethinking. The animals she depicts, notwithstanding their own power plays and predatory relationships, are not at war with each other or with other species, nor are they objects not Disneyfied, Hannelie's term, nor are they objects of the tourist gaze. The second theme is less obvious. These are all animals living in a world to which humans have done irreparable damage, for whom everyday life is precarious as a result of climate change, drought, reduced roaming land, reduced food resources and poaching. Rapid, urgent action might still help turn the tide of slow destruction. We are all, I am sure, mindful that contemporary politics threatens to undermine all efforts to redress global warming. Much of the undoing of the globe has its roots in colonialism and extraction, and through her choice of material, here Hannelie speaks directly. The Anglo ledgers of the early 20th century recall export ships from the same period, or slave registers of slightly earlier times. They are cues to what imperialism has done to this country and this continent. They draw attention to how corporations then and since have extracted resources with little concern for the immediate and long-term effects of exploitation on humans and on non-human animals. The third theme ties to this but is perhaps less obvious, although it's explicit in the exhibition titled Early Eco-Queer Creatures. Scientists from the 19th century devoted considerable space to ideas of supremacy and power as natural outcomes of the order of nature, justifying some of the most brutal acts of colonialism and violence against the environment and other species, and validating particular orders of power and relationships. Hence the idea of survival of the fittest, so to prove that humans, well, men, deserved a privileged place in commandeering resources, controlling others, and taking lives. Ideas about sex as reproduction featured in this ideology, including in terms of women's roles in maintaining the species, modelled on deep histories of habit and on assumptions about non-human animals. Research over the past half-century has steadily proven this a fallacy. Animals don't, it turns out, only make to reproduce, and the labour of social reproduction and care is not strictly held by female animals. None of the animals depicted on these walls are straight, that is, bound by assumptions of male-female bonding behaviour. All vary in terms of sexual activity, courtship, affection, pair bonding, and relationships of care and parenting. Nature, it turns out, is queer. The art is The art is queer, not just because of depictions of the diversity of animal sexual behaviour. There are examples of explicit queerness, hybrid animals such as baboon hyenas, for instance, that invite us to imagine changes in relationships, form and habit. But the art is queer too because it troubles convention, the taken for granted ideas of what is normal, expected, assumed, proper, safe. The themes of this exhibition embrace climate change, globalisation, the continued shadows of imperialism and exploitation, and of queer lives and queer order. These ought to be both appropriate subject matter for an artist and taken for granted interests for us all. This is now at risk. The political changes taking place will affect all of us through the webs of globalisation and the power of a few. These changes, cultural, political and economic, make these themes, and so this exhibition, brave and troubling. In a world that has suddenly become frightening, it is brave again to speak, paint and draw about inequality, exploitation, climate change and queerness, even in the most metaphoric register. When I was first politically active, I took to heart the mantra, the personal is political. The implication was that everything we do is political, and the corollary, an apolitical stance, is at best a statement of indifference and disregard. Artists, along with scientists, are more vulnerable than we have been perhaps some 60 to 70 years, over which time many of us have worked to undo violence to others, to environments, to people, other species, other life forms. It has been urgent to undo the inequalities that flow from differences in race, class, ethnicity, ability, sex, sexuality and gender identity, and to undo the global systems and behaviours that threaten the environment, all species and the planet as a whole. We now face enormous threats in being able to continue to do this. In this context, the subtlety and gentleness of Hannelie's work masks sedition, and I hope will inspire and reinforce acts of resistance and rebellion for our own sake. Thank you, Hannelie.